Howdy, folks, and welcome back to the Deep Dive, right here in the heart of Overton County.
Good to be here.
Now, we get all sorts of interesting things crossing our path, and today we're going to chew on something a few folks have been calling, well, digital drugs.
Hold on now, before anyone gets spooked.
Right, hold on to your hats, though. We ain't talking about nothing you'd find down a back alley or anything like that.
No, sir, we're talking about something called binaural beats.
Binaural beats, and we're looking into this because one of you good listeners sent us some homework, didn't they?
That's right, sent in a whole mess of learning material. And right here, we've got a study that's still got that new paper smell from 2024.
Fresh off the presses.
Pretty much. Published in the Open Public Health Journal, it's called Binaural Beats Effect on Brain Activity and Psychiatric Disorders. A literature review.
A literature review. So they looked at a whole bunch of studies.
Exactly. They gathered up what other researchers have found. So we've put on our thinking caps, done our reading, and we're ready to see what this study's really got to tell us.
Okay, so our mission today is about as clear as a mountain spring then. We aim to figure out just what these binaural beats are. What the smart folks in lab coats are saying they might do to your brain and, how you're feeling.
Right. The potential effects.
And importantly, whether this is something you ought to be considering right here in Overton County. We're going to try and keep the fancy talk down, lay it out good and simple.
Sounds like a plan.
So let's start at the start. What in the Sam Hill are these binaural beats?
Okay, all right. Picture this. Your two ears are hearing sounds that are just a tiny bit different from each other at the same time.
Like one radio station tuned just a hair off from another?
Kind of like that. Or maybe think like one ear's listening to a guitar string plucked just a smidge different frequency than the other one.
Okay, so one ear hears a banjo picking maybe a little higher note than the other.
Precisely. Now, your brain, being the clever thing it is, it tries to make sense of this slight difference.
It wants things to match up.
Right. So instead of hearing two separate sounds, it creates a brand new steady rhythm inside your head. That right there, that's your binaural beat.
Inside my head, not out in the air.
Nope. It's like a secret drum solo just for you. It's an auditory illusion, really. There's no actual sound wave doing the beating out there.
Huh. So it's all going on between our ears then?
In a very real way, yes. It's a perception created by the brain. And the size of that difference between those two original sounds, that decides how fast this perceived beat pulses.
How fast?
Yeah. So for example, if one ear catches a sound vibrating 440 times a second, that's hertz. 440 hertz, and the other catches 400 hertz.
Okay.
Your brain will cook up a beat that pulses 40 times a second. 40 hertz. It's a trick of the ear, something your brain just puts together.
That's mighty peculiar. Is this something new folks figured out?
Well, no, not really. What's interesting is that this was first written down way, way back in 1839 by a fella named H.W. Dost.
1839.
Yeah. But it wasn't really until the 1970s that another scientist, Gerald Oster, really got folks looking at it again. He dug into how we hear these beats and started thinking about how they might be used for different things. Practical stuff.
And that's where folks started calling them digital drugs, I reckon. That sounds a bit wild.
Yeah, well, if we look at the bigger picture, you can kind of see why some folks might grab onto that term. The idea is that these sound illusions, they might change the electrical activity in your brain.
Change your brain waves.
Potentially. And maybe even make you feel different things, relaxed, focused, sleepy a bit, like how certain substances can affect your state.
Okay. I see the connection they're making.
But it's real important to understand, and this study makes it clear. There ain't no actual medicine or chemicals involved here. None.
Right. No substances.
It's purely about sound and how your own brain makes sense of it all.
All right, so our brain makes this beat. Fine. But how in the world is that supposed to actually do anything for us, affect our mood or focus?
That's the million-dollar question, ain't it? The main idea behind how these beats might work is something called brainwave entrainment.
Brainwave entrainment. Okay, break that down for us.
Think about it like this. Imagine you got a whole mess of fireflies out on a summer night, right? Blinking on and off, all at their own speeds.
Yeah, see them down by the river all the time.
Okay. Now, if they're close enough together, sometimes they kind of start blinking together in a rhythm. They synchronize.
Like they all just decide to flash at the exact same time.
Exactly. That's entrainment in a way. So the theory is when you listen to binaural beats at a certain speed or frequency, the electrical signals in your brain, your brain waves, they might start to match that speed. They might entrain to the beat you're hearing.
Now, hold on. I know our brains have different kinds of activity going on, like when you're wide awake versus drifting off to sleep. How does this this entrainment fit in?
That's the fascinating part. Our brains naturally produce different kinds of electrical waves. We scientists, we call them delta, theta, alpha, beta, and gamma.
Okay, those sound familiar.
Right. And these different waves are more common when we're in different states. Like delta is dominant in deep, dreamless sleep. Theta is linked to drowsiness, light sleep, but also memory consolidation.
Alpha.
Alpha is that calm, relaxed, but awake state, kind of like when you're just daydreaming peacefully. Beta is when we're actively thinking, problem-solving, focused, high alert.
And gamma. That sounds fast.
It is. Gamma is associated with high-level processing, learning, perception, intense focus sometimes. So the thought is, listening to binaural beats at, say, an alpha frequency.
Around 10 beats per second, maybe?
Exactly, around 8 to 12 hertz.
Right.
Listening to that might gently nudge your brain activity more towards that alpha state, make you feel more relaxed.
So you put on your headphones, listen to a certain beat frequency, and your brain kind of gets in step with it, like those fireflies?
That's the general idea, yeah. That's the hypothesis of brainwave entrainment through binaural beats.
But does it actually work? What's the science say?
Well, see, that's where it gets a little murky. The science on whether binaural beats can reliably do this brainwave entrainment isn't 100% clear-cut.
Okay.
Some studies do seem to show this synchronizing effect happening when they measure brainwaves with an EEG.
Yeah.
But a good number of other studies show kind of mixed results, different levels of impact, or sometimes they don't find much of a link at all.
Well, that sounds like a mixed bag of beans then. So this big review study we're looking at,
Yeah.
what did it find when it pulled all that research together?
Yeah, here's where it gets real interesting, looking at specific effects.
Right.
Let's talk about memory first.
Okay, memory. Can it help me remember where I put my keys?
Maybe not that specifically, but some research suggests that listening to faster binaural beats, the ones up in the beta range, maybe even gamma, it might be good for your memory, especially for remembering things over the long haul, like long-term memory.
Long-term.
And there's even a hint it might help with that short-term working memory you use for things like reading and understanding something right in front of you.
Well, now that could be mighty helpful for folks trying to learn something new. Or students, maybe.
It could. It really could. But then we've got other studies they looked at that didn't find any change in memory at all. And some even found that memory performance got a little worse while listening.
Worse, huh?
Yeah. So it seems like the exact speed of the beat, the frequency, and how long you listen, and maybe just how each person's individual brain is wired, that might all play a big part. It's not consistent across the board.
Okay, so memory's a maybe. What about just thinking straight? Concentrating when you need to get something done.
Right, thinking and focus. What the scientists call cognition. There's some evidence that listening beats around 40 hertz, that's in that high gamma range we talked about.
The fast ones.
That could help you think more flexibly, maybe be more creative, come up with new ideas. And those beta frequencies, like we mentioned with memory, are also tied, potentially, to better focus and concentration.
So gamma for getting those light bulb moments, and beta for getting down to brass tacks. Making it simple here.
That's a simple way to think about what some of the research indicates, yeah. But just like with memory, there are other studies that show no improvement in thinking skills while listening.
Or worse again.
Or sometimes, even a slight dip in performance on certain cognitive tasks. So again, the jury's still very much out on a consistent benefit there. It's complex.
All right. Now, what about folks who might be feeling a little down, like a cloud hanging over them? Does this stuff touch on mood?
Okay, yeah. Low spirits, or what doctors call depression. The review looked at that too. A few studies have suggested that alpha frequency beats, remember that's the calm, relaxed state around 10 hertz.
Right.
They might give a little boost, lift the spirits a bit for folks feeling mildly down. The idea is maybe it changes the electrical activity in the parts of the brain that handle mood regulation.
So it's like a little sonic sunshine for the brain, possibly?
Possibly, yeah. That's one way to put it. But, and this is a recurring theme here, other studies haven't found any real difference compared to just standard treatment or placebo. And interestingly, some folks in some studies actually reported feeling worse with certain frequencies. So this area definitely needs a whole lot more looking into before anyone can say it helps with depression reliably. Really need caution there.
Gotcha. Caution is key. Now, what about that knot in your stomach? That everyday worry and jitters a lot of folks feel. Anxiety.
Anxiety.
Yeah.
Now, this is an area where some of the research seems maybe a bit more promising. Several studies reviewed did suggest that binaural beats can help ease anxiety,
Oh, really? How so?
particularly if you listen before or even during something that typically makes you nervous, like maybe going to the dentist or before a medical procedure.
Ah, so it could be a way to calm those pre-appointment jitters. That'd be handy.
That's a possibility some research points to. Seems the specific kind of beat, whether it's mixed with music or nature sounds, masking they call it, and how long you listen, those factors might all play a role in how well it works for anxiety.
But I sense a but coming.
You sense right. Even here, where things look a bit more positive, some newer, well-designed studies haven't found much of an effect on anxiety compared to control conditions. So it's still not a guaranteed fix for everyone's worries. Promising, but not definite.
Okay. Sleep and sound is something a lot of us wish for more of. Any news on that front from the binaural beat world?
Yes, sleep. There's some early research suggesting that those really slow delta beats, remember, deep sleep waves, might help you get into a deeper stage of sleep.
Deeper sleep sounds good.
It does. Some studies even showed folks reporting feeling less sleepy during a day and waking up feeling a bit easier. It might also help indirectly, maybe by calming down that anxiety that can keep you tossing and turning.
That makes sense. Less worry, better sleep.
Right. So could it be a kind of lullaby for the digital age?
Maybe.
Maybe. But flip side again. Some studies found these slow beats might actually make it harder to think clearly right after listening, maybe some cognitive interference.
Like feeling groggy.
Possibly. And listening to them for too long, especially through headphones all night, might just get plain bothering for some folks. The science on binaural beats and sleep is still pretty young. Still just getting started, really.
It seems like everything we've talked about, memory, focus, mood, anxiety, sleep, it all comes back to this idea of changing brainwaves.
Mm-hmm.
Have they actually seen these brainwave changes happen when people listen? Hook them up to machines?
Absolutely. That's the EEG, the electroencephalogram, those caps with all the wires.
Yep, seen them.
So when scientists use those brain-reading machines, some studies do show clear evidence that listening to binaural beats can change the patterns of your brainwaves. The electrical activity shifts.
Okay, there's proof.
Well, proof of a change, yes. For instance, listening to alpha frequency beats might boost the amount of alpha and theta waves the brain is producing. Beta beats might boost beta waves and maybe lower theta waves. They see a response.
So the sound's actually making a measurable difference in the electrical hum of our brains.
That's what some of the EEG research points to, yes. A direct effect on brain oscillations. However, and you probably guessed this was coming.
Oh boy, here we go.
Other studies, also using EEG, have found just the opposite, or no significant change at all, or changes in different brain regions than expected.
How can that be, measuring the same thing?
It seems like the specific frequency of the beat, how long folks listen, maybe even which part of the brain they're looking at with the EEG sensors. All these details can change what they find. It's complex physiology.
Goodness. It sounds like trying to herd cats, getting the straight answer with all these different results. Why is it so back and forth in the research? Why isn't it clearer?
That's a great question, and the researchers who rate this review, they point that out directly. It's really tough to get a clear overall picture because all these different studies, they do things a little differently.
How so?
Well, they use different frequencies of binaural beats. Maybe one uses 10 hertz, another uses 12 hertz. They have folks listen for different amounts of time, 5 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. They measure the results in different ways, memory tests, mood questionnaires, EEG readings.
It's comparing apples and oranges sometimes.
Kinda, yeah. It makes it hard to combine the results cleanly. Plus, like we said before, every single one of us is wired a little differently, ain't we? Our brains might just react to these sounds in their own unique way based on our own biology and state of mind. Individual differences are huge.
All right, folks, we've spent some time digging deep into these binaural beats thanks to this review study. So, after all that, what's the main thing we ought to take away? What's the bottom line?
I think the big picture takeaway is that there's something genuinely interesting going on here. Our brains do seem to respond to these special sound patterns in noticeable ways.
Okay.
And some of that research hints at possible benefits for things like memory, maybe focus, mood, anxiety levels, and potentially even sleep. And it looks like they can, at least sometimes, have a measurable effect on our brainwaves.
What? And it's a big but, ain't it?
It's a big but. It ain't a magic bullet for anything, that's for sure. The science, as this 2024 review shows, is still very much developing. It's not settled.
Right. Lots of maybe, and it depends.
Exactly. There's a good bit of uncertainty, conflicting findings, and it really seems like how well they might work, or if they work, can depend a lot on the specific situation and the individual person. What might do the trick for one person right here in Overton County?
Might not do a lick of good for their neighbor.
Precisely.
Now, hold on. This is where it gets really interesting for you listening right now, maybe in your truck, maybe in your kitchen. Seeing as these binaural beats, well, they're easy to find as a cricket's chirp on a summer night, ain't they?
They really are. All over the internet, YouTube, apps.
Right. You can find them online, and all you need is a regular old set of headphones. So you might be wondering, sitting there, could this be something that could help me out?
Yeah, maybe you're looking for just a little more focus when you're trying to get a project done or balance the checkbook.
Or maybe you've been tossing and turning a bit when you try to get some shut-eye at night.
Could this offer some help?
Well, here's our remarkable call to action for you good folks right here in Overton County and beyond.
All right, let's hear it.
If this whole idea of binaural beats has got your attention, got your curiosity piqued, why not give them a listen yourself?
Be your own scientist, kind of.
Exactly. There are plenty of free tracks out there. Find one that claims to help with focus or relaxation or whatever interests you. Put on some headphones.
Gotta use headphones, remember. That's key for the two different sounds.
Good point. Gotta have stereo headphones. Then just pay attention. How are you feeling before you start listening? What's going through your head?
Set a baseline.
Right. Then listen for a bit, maybe 15, 20 minutes, and see how you feel during and especially after you're done. Did you notice any change? Any shift in how well you could focus? Did your mood change any? Feel any more relaxed? Or maybe more jittery?
Keep a little mental note, or maybe even jot it down on a piece of paper if you're serious about it. Note the frequency if they tell you what it is.
You might just stumble onto something that works well for you, even if the big science studies are still figuring it all out.
Personal experience can be valuable.
And listen here, if you do decide to give it a try, come on back to our little corner of the internet. You know where to find us, our website, social media. Leave a comment. Tell us all about what happened.
Yeah, we'd love to hear. Did it do anything for you? What kind of beats did you listen to? What were you hoping for?
Let's get a little informal Overton County experiment going on right here. Share your story. And hey, while you're at it, if you found this deep dive as interesting as we did,
Hope you did.
don't forget to hit that like button, give us a thumbs up, and subscribe. Click that subscribe button so you don't miss our next exploration into the wonders of knowing whatever topic we tackle next.
Keeps us going.
It surely does. Now, before we say so long for today, let's just take a quiet moment.
Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you for the curiosity you've planted in us, Lord, and for the chance to learn new things about this amazing world and these minds you've given us.
We ask for your wisdom, Father, and your guidance as we try to understand things better and find healthy ways to take care of ourselves, mind, and body.
Please bless all those listening right now, especially our neighbors here in Overton County. Keep them safe, keep them healthy, Lord.
And grant them peace in their hearts and in their minds, today and always. Amen.